And okay, perfect. Hi, Derek.
He's showing that his sister brought him from Cancun.
Oh, he's been wearing that a lot, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, I'll just kind of start everybody off here. So, as we all know, they know me as Dr. Co. And my friends here, Kathy, wave hi, Kathy. And Derek, wave hi. Thank you. And then my friend Nickole. There you go. Nickole is Derek's sister. And so we can get kind of a sibling view as well. So these are my fabulous friends who are willing to let us learn from them. So, Kathy, do you kind of just want to give us some background about Jared, and then my students can kind of ask about self-care skills and things along those lines? I didn't really want to structure it super structured. I thought, let's just make it what it is.
Well, Derek, I would say, my husband and I are retired. So Derek has since we've moved here, has a pretty structured day. And by structured, I mean routine. So Derek knows what's expected of him. I think in that way, he's very comfortable. You know, he gets up in the morning and my husband makes him a beautiful breakfast, and then it's time to get dressed and make your bed, which if I showed you, you'd be pretty impressed, actually. And as far as self-care, he's very much wants to, be showered and clean. I mean, I'm just so thankful that way. And he needs some help, but he's pretty self-sufficient. He needs maybe a reminder during the day to, for example, if it's cold out, you may want to put on a hoodie instead of a pair of shorts and t-shirt.
And I would say for a shower too, it's like, okay, Derek, don't forget, wash your hair, wash your body. Like, you poke in every once in a while and just make sure he's done, like, rinsed all of the soap out of his hair. And I think, don't you think, Mom?
Yeah, for the most part, he does a pretty good job.
So to my students here, I'm going to pop in here. Now they're calling those reminders. What do we call those in the special education world that we've been learning about? Prompting, yay!
Verbal.
Sorry, I have my sandwich in my mouth.
You're totally fine, but I just wanted to know that you know the words, because it seems so simple, but there, if you're looking for types of reminders, we do need to know those words so that we can use our resources and say we're trying to find prompts for some of these self-care skills and things along those lines. So all that they're talking about here is different prompting strategies that they need to use in order to help Derek be more self-sufficient. So,
and I think, if we kind of look at it like, there was probably a time where it was more, instead of prompting, I would call it directing.
Right.
And Derek was a little resistant to that. So we just found some words that helped us. We use nice hands, nice feet, nice. From an adult perspective, of course, that was from way back, when he was in grade school.
I don't know. He still likes to clap his hands really loud and slam doors. And we just have to, like, before he even would go outside or go downstairs, you have to, like, I would say, remind him or whatever. Hey, Derek, when you go downstairs, please have nice feet or nice hands. So he doesn't, he's not stomping on everything and because he's so strong, he will make the pictures fall off your wall.
Oh.
But I would say, we're fortunate in that he's very compliant and very happy and normally very, very healthy, and enjoys, like, he loves to vacuum and do chores. He had, his chores to take out the trash every day. And
Derek, you can come hang out at my house whenever you want, baby.
He does. He loves to do those kind of stuff. And I think it makes him feel wanted, useful, a part of the family. Exactly.
Everybody, I love it, Derek. Everybody make Derek's day. Make funny faces. Derek loves funny faces. Oh, I love it.
I mean, as
Can we
far as,
start asking questions?
oh, absolutely.
There you go. Sounds good.
Okay, I just have a quick question. How did you get to the point of getting a routine? What did that look like?
My mom has always had a routine. Always.
Well, and I
That's
think
probably why I'm so resistant to him.
I think part of it is just understanding that repetition, constant, we call them verbal cues, reminders, whatever. I mean, those things that, and I think probably pretty early on, I realized that Derek was really comfortable or operated much more happy if he had a structured environment. And so I wish you could see he's sitting here with his hands folded very nicely.
He's in class. He knows he's in class. He's learning
sure.
right now.
He likes to show everybody his belly.
Bob Marley is his jam.
We're all working on it.
Yeah.
I love it.
But anyway, I think that that's probably just from a mom's perspective, and probably even from an educator's perspective, realizing that each student, each child is individual, and he just likes to have that. So it wasn't even much of a struggle. I mean, I always say, if you show Derek how to do something, be prepared to do it for the rest of your life, because he will literally, like I said, gets dressed, makes his bed, colors. He has certain things he doesn't, and how he can't tell time. And so it just must be an innate or a second ability for him to just feel this comfort zone in doing the things that he does. And of course, he's an adult, so he doesn't have, when he was in school, of course, we got up early and he had got on the bus and went to school and came home, just like any other, high school kid or elementary school kid would do.
I will say, though, when he comes to my house and we don't have the routine, he gets agitated. He wants to go home and he wants his stuff. He likes to do his things in order, and that's not necessarily how my house works. So when he comes over, sometimes we go rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay too.
Example though, because that is why we teach the importance of schedules for individuals with disabilities such as Down syndrome and a lower end of the spectrum, autism, because it's not only about what helps them learn, but it's so much about behaviors and whether or not they are able to learn. If we get out of a comfort zone, you guys think about yourselves when you're hungry or when you've had a fight with a loved one or something. We don't learn very well during those times either, because our system's thrown out, so that's a perfect example of that.
And it's still okay for him to be at Nicole's house and have a little, you don't want it to be that if he never has that he can't function. We don't do it a lot because, again, we're retired. We don't,
they have the lake. We tend to go there.
Yeah.
But that's really good for him. I will be right back, guys. I'm going to mute this. I have to go get my child started on a Zoom meeting. So you guys keep talking.
Any other questions? I'm more than happy to answer or try to help. And Nickole too is, I don't know. Are you mostly early ed? Are you thinking early ed? Are you thinking just special ed in general?
I'll ask another question if no one else does.
Okay.
So I'm K-12, and I'm just curious, what did his transition plan look like?
Derek actually went to high school. We lived in Denver, and Derek actually went to school in a place where resources were pretty abundant. So, of course, by law, the school system educates adults or disability individuals with disability till they're 21. So Derek actually graduated from Columbine High School. We lived in Littleton, and he went to Columbine High School. And they had a challenge program there at the high school that was sort of, well, number one, they involved peers. And by peers, I mean other students in the school that didn't have any kind of special needs or were involved in the special education program. They were peers that volunteered to help throughout the day with the individuals with disabilities. And so it was an amazing program, and they worked on some job skills, you know, how to stay on task for 15 minutes at a time.
Sorting paper.
Yeah, sorting paper. I mean, he did a lot, but there was a transition program, and he went to, after he graduated, so he attended 4 years, the program there at Columbine, and then went to Warren Tech, which was a technical community college. And they had a program there where on Mondays they went around to different schools and collected papers from different public school systems, and then they would come back and sort them and shred them. So there was a program in place for that transition. And then transition from that to sort of adulthood was a day program that he attended, and very much the same structure in that on Mondays they collected food from the local grocery stores, and they all worked in a food pantry and served over 20 families through this day program. And on Fridays was open pantry day, and families would come in and they served them. On Tuesday, they made their own lunches, and on Wednesday, they did different segments. They had some higher functioning adults there that made jewelry, and then they would sell it Thursday they had a coffee shop where they served the public on Thursday. So there were programs there.
And then Momtel moving here, that there might be programs, but there's like not enough people who do the, the funding was even there, but there's just not enough people who, like Derek, when he was working at the YMCA, he had to have somebody there, you know, prompting him, hey, now you need to sweep. Hey, now you need to whatever.
They called it a job coach.
A job coach. And there's just not enough job coaches. So ultimately they canceled Derek's job. I mean, so he doesn't really have any services around here that are provided for him.
So transition is tough, but I'll tell you, I know a lot of families when we lived in Denver who didn't reach out or try to join any of those transition programs as they went from high school to a transition program from usually 19 to 21 or 20 to 21, depending upon where they were at educationally. And as from a parent standpoint, one of the scariest thing is that if something happens to me, what does that look like for Derek? Because if I am his whole world and he then gets taken out of that by something happening to me, no, you know, he doesn't have a job, he doesn't live independently, you know, those types of things that you all are doing, you know, as young adults. So, you know, there's a definite need for staff. There's a definite need for funding. But that transition can be difficult for a lot of families, because if I were still working and my husband were working, what would we do with Derek? He's an adult. He can't go to a daycare. You know, what does that look like if there's no funding for him to participate in some, like a South Central, for example, in Cozad? I'm not sure in Kearney what that looks like, but anyway, so it can be difficult.
Does that through South Central. Don't worry, Kathy, that's my dream retirement. I want to open up day skills care, not a daycare, day skills care for individuals with disabilities who are adults. That's like my dream. So if y'all want to give me money.
Same here, Bailey. We always say, I'll take them all, because
amen.
If they don't have a place to go, you can come hang out with me.
Let's do right.
Right.
I'm gonna send
He
Derek
could be
over.
excited about that.
He's going to come plant with Bailey this summer.
That sounds wonderful. If we weren't doing the social distancing thing right now, Kathy and I didn't have to worry about Derek, I would tell you he could come in and do some sweeping and stuff like that lately.
Well, he would love that.
I know.
But the social distancing has really impacted our day-to-day lives, because with Derek getting pneumonia so easy that I can't even go over there, and we used to go see them every week, once a week at least, and I haven't seen them in forever, and that's really hard on us.
Yeah.
Hard.
But yeah, I mean, transition is hard for a lot of families, and it is a real issue with, I'm sure, a lot of families. We're just fortunate that we're retired. That is the plus to all of that is, and that even when my husband worked and we lived in Denver, I was able to stay home and, be that for him. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you all have other questions, self-care skills or anything else? I mean, really, this can go with wherever you guys want it to go or need it to go.
I have a question.
Go
So
ahead.
you mentioned that he went to high school in Colorado. Do you guys live in Nebraska now?
Yeah, we live out at Johnson Lake.
How did he even notice like the transition to Nebraska, or was that hard for him to see all of the moving going on? Or
I think that's a great question.
Do you see how he's copying mom?
That's a great question because, he doesn't have his stuff in his room. He doesn't, it's not the same schedule.
And they had to live at my house for 2 weeks.
In our RV. That was fun. In the driveway. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult, but I would say again, routine and those things that make him happy. He's also pretty flexible. I mean, we live out at the lake, and so in the summer we're on the boat, and you think, his house, what's he gonna do with that? And I would say Nikki, maybe the first 10-ish times that first summer we were here, he was getting on the boat and just not, it was difficult. Mitch had to help, Nicole's husband had to help a couple of times,
Was he scared, Kathy?
It's just the uneven or the just transition
to balance. When your balance is off, but just like moving here a few times in his new room, and his routine is back to normal, and it's a piece of cake. I don't feel like he ever had any sort of meltdown or anything, because you keep his things normal. Like, even though you weren't in that house anymore, we still had the routine. Like, you wake up and you get your breakfast, and then whatever you do, and then your lunch. And he pretty much, that's how he tells what time of day it is, I'm pretty sure. What meal's coming next.
And other than he graduated from, he was a big Peyton Manning fan. Broncos, big, huge.
That's it really hurts now.
Somewhere along the line, I think it was one of the staff members at the day program he attended, was a Bob Marley fan. So I just wondering, can I turn the camera around, Bailey? Do you know how I do that?
Let's see. Is there kind of like a circle looking thing on there, Kathy?
Yes.
Look for that. There you go.
There you go. So this is D-Man's World. There's a Bob Marley right there.
Nice.
Bob Marley.
His desk. He does a lot of coloring. That's how he unwinds. He watches TV and colors.
I love coloring. See, this is why I think I'm meant to be a sped teacher. That's like my world too, honestly.
We have a little Peyton Manning still throw in there, but for the most part.
He likes Bob Marley.
What an awesome space, Derek.
I feel like, the very first thing I did when we moved here was to make sure that his room was the way it was in Denver, and then everything else can be a little chaotic. Again, I feel really fortunate because he does like the routine, and for the most part we sort of operate within that routine, but he's okay with an occasional, different. He loves to ride his bike. He loves to be on the boat. He loves to come over to Nicole's house and drive the old tractor. Thank God they live on, acreage.
Now, Kathy, how do we do with toileting, wiping, and things along those lines?
He is, with few exceptions, it's just never been an issue. Health-wise, he's had some issues with constipation because of the lower muscle tone. He can tend to be constipated, plays a part in it.
We understand that with that lower muscle tone, it's hard to push to get the stool to release. Those are some things that we don't think about with the way that our bodies are built, but an individual with Down syndrome naturally has a lower muscle tone, so that can be a very common problem.
Diet, fiber, fruits, vegetables, yogurt, that kind of thing. It's he drinks a lot of water.
Those are all in his routine. Like, he gets his yogurt with his breakfast. He knows that too. I need my yogurt. I need my juice. I need my all his things that help him, in the morning, that just are his routine.
So will he ask for that? Like, if he's at your house, Nickole?
Yeah, he'll say yogurt or orange juice, and I'm like, hey, I don't have those things. I'm sorry. Or, if I know he's coming to stay with me, I for sure will, load up on his basics. So
that's awesome that he'll ask for that. Derek, your mom told me that you found fuzz on the floor the other day. She told me you said fuzz.
Fuzz.
Very clean.
Vacuum.
Get the vacuum.
So again, like you saw his room. That's all him. I don't.
Very clean.
Yeah. He likes
technically
things.
That's part of the routine my mom has instilled in him his whole life.
But it did not work for Nickole, huh? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying it did not work for me.
You also have children. Trust me, my house is the same right now.
Yeah. So again, I think if I had to say one thing, it would just be, before I had Derek, I had no exposure to someone with special needs. Mm-hmm. The one thing I feel like, well, he's taught me a lot, but mostly that he is an individual and with a personality and nice and silly. And, if you just take that to heart and realize, I'm not saying every adult with Downs has the routine, has the, that makes them happy. I think from what I saw with other parents, of course, that's the case. But he's just, he's a light. Yeah, and silly.
To me,
and an individual.
Happy, to me, you are a great example of parenting gone right when it comes to being blessed with an individual with Down syndrome as your child, because, and I definitely see that as more often the case than not, but knowing, and figuring that out, even if you didn't get the training, but figuring out the importance of that mm-hmm. schedule and all of that stuff, you did everything right. And Derek is a very well-adjusted, sweet mm-hmm. guy. I met you randomly through our store, and I headed right for him.
Yeah. And I would honestly say, at least at this point, 98% of the time he's happy, unless he's not healthy. If he doesn't feel good like anyone else. But there was a time when he started going through puberty that it was very rough. He had lots of aggression, and I know it's hard to believe now, but lots of aggression.
Flipped over an entire breakfast table full of food. And he's just so strong. It was just it was nothing to him.
That's an excellent point, Kathy. So during that time, what kinds of things did you have to change, or did you have to adjust?
you know, we lived in Omaha at the time, and I did have resources through Boys and Girls Town to help with some of that. There was a period that Derek lived for 90 days in a foster home. And the reason for that was because I was working and made too much money to qualify for any programs for him and not enough to pay for what was there. And so, and health insurance, you know, didn't cover. I mean, you have to remember, this is 15 years ago. You know, Derek's 25 now. So things looked a lot different. Even 25 years ago when he was born, you know, they still talked about, I don't even know if I can say this, but therapeutic abortion. I mean, that was still.
I'm literally crying over here, imagining you having to put your child
Well,
in
you know
foster
what?
care because that was
Yeah.
the only option. Oh my gosh.
Well, it was just Mom and I, and Derek was so aggressive. I mean, he smacked me. I can't even tell you how many times. And a lot of things that were interesting to me was a lot, you know, we had the same routine, and Derek being nonverbal for the most part, he couldn't tell us he didn't want a bath. He wanted a shower. But how could you have ever, and you know, how could we have ever have known that? Like when we figured that out, it was so, that's just a small piece of the pie of what he needed and couldn't express to us or figure out how he needed
And
that.
I'm sure that hormones, you know, with puberty played a huge part in that.
I have a 13-year-old without Down syndrome right now.
Yeah.
I was out to come to you, Kathy, see if you could fix him.
No.
So,
She already did that.
yeah, I'm done. I paid my dues. But, you know, just reaching out for help. The one thing I would say, the one thing I wish I had done differently is I did medicate Derek based on the advice of a physician. And I wish I had known to do some other behavioral things first. I'm not saying that that's not necessary or that there isn't a place for that. Derek did end up attending an alternative. This would have been, what grade? Maybe fifth grade. Maybe fifth grade. Maybe fifth grade. And so fifth, sixth grade, he started an alternative school. And they were wonderful with, you know, the behavioral issues and how those could be managed at home better. And then it wasn't till really when he was then in, you know, 14, 15 maybe, with the that we did some medication. So,
But
you know, I don't think
him off the medication because he turned into a zombie, and it wasn't like Derek. I mean, it was just I would say that was the hardest time in Derek's life for all of us, was his teenage puberty years where we didn't know how to help him, and we didn't have necessarily the resources or the help available. I mean, my mom is a single mom with 2 kids, and how do you ever know with no resources? How do you ever know how to help yourself or take care of your kid when there was just nothing available? I mean, now it's so awesome. I mean, there's Facebook groups. I'm not saying that would have been the solve all, but there's just so many more resources now for probably young kids. I don't even know that there's resources for adults.
Right. And it is a different mentality. Again, when I was pregnant with Derek, I was fortunate. I didn't necessarily have to make a lot of choices because I was 30 weeks when I found out, 32 weeks when I found out he had Down syndrome, 30 weeks when I found out he was sick. So I was further along. But again, the whole conversation about adoption, institutionalized. This was just 25 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
And so that's, you know, I'm thankful and grateful that is looked at much differently now, not just by parents, but by educators and those that want to have this amazing face in their life, you know?
He is difficult to not love.
Yeah, he's pretty difficult.
Gosh. I wasn't on the same screen as you guys. He just makes you laugh. Like, man, this social distancing sucks, but it is so awesome to be able to FaceTime with him, because it is honestly the bright spot of my day.
I'm looking at all of my students' faces here, and all I see are smiles.
Yeah.
How could you not?
And that I guarantee this is going to be the highlight of their day. I know it certainly is mine. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
I'm actually crying because this is so cool. Like, I think that whatever you like that you guys are doing, how much, because we've seen a lot of people care for Derek, and you either, I mean, in my opinion, you either have it or you don't. You can walk into a room and you just know that a person cares for Derek, or they're just there. You know what I mean? Like, there's a personality that is like, can walk up and be like, oh my gosh, Derek, and he likes pretty girls. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
he knows the pretty girls, and he likes the pretty girls. And anyone who would sit in color with him or talk to him, not like he has a special need, but like he is a young man who loves to do whatever the heck you're doing. I mean, he likes to Snapchat, and he likes to, you know what I mean? He likes all the same things. So
I love it. Everybody say cheese. We're gonna take a picture.
Cheese.
I love it. Got it. Now we'll all have that. That's awesome. Do you guys have questions that you want to keep asking? This has been great so far.
So I have a question, Kathy. So my husband works for ILC, and you mentioned job coaching earlier. He actually, I don't know, do you guys have something similar to that now? Like, I know he has a kid in Kearney he goes to see once a week just to give like the parents a break. Is that something that you guys are into, or?
We would, I mean, so when we first moved here, I signed Derek up for adult services. And he qualifies and is eligible. So those are some words that I don't know if you ever run across, but as a parent with a child with special needs, you hear that all the time. The other thing you hear is funding. So Derek absolutely is eligible. He absolutely qualifies, but the funding isn't there.
Okay.
And so we heard from
didn't they say like 3 to 6 years before he's there's a wait list before he's able to be eligible for like any of the day programs in town here.
Oh wow.
So the other thing is we did go through I don't know, I guess you'd call it a process, which an assessment basically, and it said that Derek qualifies and he is eligible for a job coach, but because he is nonverbal and requires the verbal cues to stay on track and to stay focused, he needs a full-time job coach.
Oh, okay.
That full-time job coach, even though we even offered to partial pay, you know what I mean? If there were pay to have him a job, figure that one out. But anyway, and I get it. I mean, you know, he does need a coach, but there's no resources here where we live. So we live closer. I don't know how familiar everybody is, but we live closer to Lexington. So he did this assessment at the Y, and because he needed the one-on-one coach, there was just no resources available for him, even 4 hours once a week, you know? So yes, we'd love that. We had, when we lived in Denver, we had, my husband and I had 4 weeks a year respite, full-time, overnight, 24 hours.
Okay.
We just don't have that here.
And you guys, you said you're in Cozad?
Go ahead, Cheyenne. Sorry.
You said you're in Cozad?
We live out at Johnson Lake, so we're closer to Lexington.
Okay.
Nickole lives in Cozad, or outside of Cozad.
Just outside of Cozad.
Yep, and I'm here too. Kathy, I don't know why I didn't think of this, but I don't go to UNK on Fridays. So even like in the spring and stuff like that, just not in the winter because we don't have anything, but on Fridays, once this COVID stuff calms down, let's do some sweeping and stuff in the greenhouse.
Okay.
And
we'd love that.
That's just fun for me.
He would love that. He loves to take out trash or I mean, he does a lot of things well.
Yeah, we can have a blast together, D-Man. So once this COVID stuff calms down, Kathy, message me and we'll get that set up. So
Okay.
And
But,
Bailey, I know last year at the end of the school year, you had posted something. Mom had written a letter about
getting somebody
respite.
to come in. Yeah.
And if you had any students this year, I mean, I can help. I love helping, but I have 2 small children, and sometimes
her plate's
I
full.
need out of the house.
Right.
So, but if you had somebody to do respite care who'd love to come hang out with Derek, I mean, I don't know if that counts towards credits or if you can get any sort of time to your class, you know, but I just think it would be awesome if you had some people who would want to hang out with Derek, and not even overnight, but for a few hours, so Mom and Keith could get dinner.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great. And actually now we're getting to the point where my boys are getting old enough to be able to kind of do things with me and help me do that stuff. Hudson wants to be a teacher. So, I mean, I'm just automatically thinking of my kids right now. How can I keep my children busy? So, you know, those are great options, but I will send out that email again, Nickole, because I did send it out last year. The issue is always location.
Right.
I know.
And we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but I'll tell you what, again, as a parent, and it looks different when they're in school. I mean, there are resources that are there when they are younger. And if you were, as a parent, going through that with Derek, when whether it was kindergarten or 12th grade, I think from a family perspective, one of the best things you can do for a family is educate yourself. I don't know what your parameters are or what limitations, you know, how much you can share with families as far as resources, and tell a family that's in kindergarten, you know what, sign your child up for adult services now. You know, be that advocate for the family, because school is important. These, you know, socialization is important. Education is important. But for Derek, one of the best things for him was just being this really awesome person to be around, and having that social ability. But if someone had told me these resources are available, but there could be a 10-year wait list, sign him up now.
That is a really, really excellent point. So for all of you K-12 majors, you know, I mean, I know that we very often start talking, we don't talk about transition often until we're talking like 15, 16 years old. Well, I think Kathy has just pretty much blown that out of the water, ladies. I mean, we need to be talking about possible transition for individuals with much higher needs a lot earlier than 16 years old.
Yeah. And you know that you're going to get parents, and I've seen it. I've talked to parents who are like, yeah, we don't need that. Or, you know, or that's not necessary. They're just going to live with us. Well, it's not just about living in a parent's home. Again, I mentioned, you know, if something happens to me, what's that going to look like for Derek? You know, if he's already in a, say, like a day program where he has other social outlets.
And as a sister's perspective or a sibling, what's that look like for me?
Is Derek going to have, ask you, Nickole,
is Derek going to have something in place for him? Is he going to come live with me full time? Would he go somewhere and live with me part time? Like, that's really the unknown. I mean, I am Derek's co-guardian, so I would be making those. And we had to do a lot of court stuff for me to become a co-guardian.
You know, that's the other important thing is not, I mean, resources, but there needs to be a special needs trust in place. What does that look like for his care if I'm not around? Yeah. Derek's biological father isn't in his life. And so I know that if it's me, you know, do I want that for my daughter? Or do I want her just to make sure that he's taken care of? Does he have other resources?
But Derek's dad was in his life until he was 18 and he had to stop paying child support. And then he's gone. How do you love somebody for 19 years?
That's a Jerry Springer. That's a Jerry Springer.
Wrong show.
On
I
show.
didn't know that though. I was curious about that, Nickole. Oh my gosh. You guys just gonna keep making me cry this entire time. Oh.
Well, so here's the thing is just,
Question.
uh-huh.
I'm sorry, because I have to leave early. And I really, it's been bugging me. What would you recommend or refer to us as future educators that we may not know from a family standpoint? What do you wish an educator might have known about Derek or even just Down syndrome itself?
So with, and you know this, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but with having a child with special needs comes an IEP. And with that IEP, I understand sometimes they need to look very grim in order to get services for the child, what they need, how many hours of speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, you know, what kind of things. So, and again, remember, this was, let's see, how old are you, 25? So it was at least 20 years ago, 22 years ago. I walked out of an IEP bawling. Your child will never, they can't, they won't. I mean, you know, do you see where I'm headed with that? And so I understand that those items need to be addressed and goals need to be set. But had those things been said to me with a caveat
Positive light.
right, more positive at the end. But you know what? Derek is the bright spot of everyone's day. He loves to say hi. So kind of keep that in mind. I mean, yes, as an educator, you have an agenda and there's a schedule that needs to follow, and you're trying to get that child everything they need to make sure that they are the best of what they can be. But there's also a mom behind that, or a family, a daughter, a family member, whatever, a husband, a dad that needs to hear
Just positive language, like, we're gonna do these sort of things so your kid can flourish in these parts of their life, you know what I mean? Instead of, but I agree with my mom, and that was 20 years ago, and I would hope that people who want to be in this field know not to talk that way, that negatively. But I could understand that.
And so as an educator, that's definitely what I would say would be, as a parent, the one thing I wish had been different throughout the years.
That's an excellent point. That was a great question, Rebecca. As a special educator who does tend to be like constantly annoyingly positive at all times, I would say that, you know, I got really good at saying things like, you know, this needs to be a really large primary goal because this is going to be very difficult for Derek. Now, that does not mean that Derek will not be able to do it, but it does mean that we will need to work very hard. And these are the things that we're going to do. And this is what I'm going to need you to do on the home front as well. Guys, when we have educators and families working together, there is no limit to what these students can do. So it is just so important to put that piece in those IEPs where you're saying we are going to work on this together. And yes, it is going to be difficult, but it is not impossible, because nothing is impossible.
I agree 100%.
Yep.
Great question. Do you guys have other questions? No? Okay, I'm looking through the questions that other people who are not able to be here have asked. Most of them have been answered throughout this, but one of them did say, from Morgan, she asked, did you use any video or technology when teaching self-care skills, Kathy?
So again, a while ago, but we had a PEX book. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
Picture Exchange Communication System.
Yep, we had a PEX book, and we did do some signing, but you know what? The technology wasn't It was, I mean, it just wasn't there.
Well,
I mean,
and
it wasn't.
actually, you can check out an old textbook for what it looked like from our library. And we're talking, it was like a giant book that came with a string so you could put it around the individual's neck. It was like,
We've seen those. We did that.
I still have his. So if you're interested, I can take that out of the archives too.
oh my gosh, thank God for technology.
It just had little Velcro things, you know, like
And we stuck them around the house, and we had them on the fridge. And I mean, you pulled it out of your book and you handed, you know, it's,
Yep, that's what
I mean, we thought it was great. We thought, oh my word, this is so awesome.
it is for the time.
Yeah. So technology wasn't a participating part then, but that was the technology, I guess, that we used.
And
in
Derek is
communication.
very good with technology. He is very good with technology. He can FaceTime.
Yeah.
He, like, by himself. Like, I've had multiple calls at 4 a.m. Hi, Cole. Like, he knows how to work. Like, when my boys have the iPad over there, he knows how to push the buttons and work that just like anyone else. He is. Yeah. I don't know. For some reason, I think because, you know, my kids know how to use an iPad at age 2, and I'm 32, and I'm still figuring that out. But I just feel like it's easier for kids or young people. I don't know. Derek just gets it like that.
Yeah. I mean, he has music on his phone that he can plug his little headphones in and listen to his music, or he has an iPad that he has movies on, and he can work that independently. So, you know, I mean,
they recently learned about video modeling and doing things along those lines. So have you tried any of that for self-care skills, or really for anything else? Or how do you feel like Derek would respond to any type of video modeling if you're trying to teach a school?
I guess you'd have to tell me what it is.
Okay, fair enough. So let's use sweeping, for example. Okay, so let's say Derek is going to come and he's going to do some sweeping. In order to get him prepared, I would maybe do a little video of me sweeping in the greenhouse and say, hi, Derek, this is what you're going to be doing. And I would show me sweeping up and down the things, and I would send that to you ahead of time just to where you could give him a little bit of a view of what it will look like. And then, you know, we would do more one-on-one together. That's kind of what I mean by video model.
Gotcha.
I think that's neat. I think he'd watch it.
Yeah. I mean, we're always open to whatever. I mean, but I feel like it's not much different. I mean, I think, but if you show him, you know, he's pretty good about catching on. Like, we started, you know, he wipes after we're done with dinner at night. Well, first of all, the placemats, it's his job to get those out and put them on the table. And then he always picks up, I mean, you don't want to set anything down in my house unless you're done with it, because he will pick it up and put it away if you're not. But you know, he wipes the table off.
He comes by that naturally, because if you get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, chances are your bed's going to be made because of my mom. I'm just saying. Again, that didn't happen for me, you guys.
That's not true. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, he wipes off the table. I mean, so these are things that we've had to kind of, you know, like I said, takes the trash out. He knows where that goes, you know, and then we started having him vacuum. And so we just kind of add things. But if you show him, he's really, really good about, so I don't know why that modeling wouldn't work. You know, I mean, it would just be and he's hooked into technology and is connected to it. So I think that would be a good tool.
Awesome. Great. Do you guys have any more questions? Go ahead, Taylor. You have to unmute yourself, Sweet Pea.
There we go. Sorry. Do you feel like with the picture prompts, over time he could become more and more independent at, say, like a job skill site? So like even looking at the greenhouse with Dr. Co, like I know one of the problems was the funding to have a job skills coach with him all the time, but like over time, obviously through several years and like the right pictures and everything, he could gain enough independence to just be able to do the jobs on his own.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, again, I don't prompt him to make his bed. I don't prompt him to get dressed. And there was a time when that was, so yeah, I mean, there's nothing for me to believe that over a period of time, he wouldn't be successful.
Yeah.
You know, again, when he was in the D program, Rayanna was she was their culinary coach. And so every Tuesday they made lunch. And yeah, you know, at first you're like, oh, I don't, because there is some safety issues. For example, Derek doesn't have any stranger danger. He doesn't know that if you turn the microwave on for 10 minutes and put a fork in there, it'll explode. I mean, you know, those kinds of things. And so that's why he can't be left alone or independent. But there's no reason to believe that over a period of time he wouldn't
Get a routine.
He wouldn't understand what was expectations are big, because once he figures out what your expectation is, he's pretty good at fulfilling that, you know. Isn't that true?
Feeling that Derek's gonna be my favorite employee. We're gonna get this figured out here.
That would be pretty cool. He'd like that.
That'll be wonderful. And then that'll be, you know, I mean, unfortunately it can't go year round. So that's another perfect example of how we will have to have some adjustments, you know, because it's not gonna be all the time. But I think it'll be pretty good.
Do you accept the position, Derek?
Can I hire you? All right, you're hired. Yay!
All right.
We just have to wait for this COVID stuff to clear up a little bit, because I'm a little too worried about your pneumonia, Mr. Man.
So, so I know Bailey said D-man on the, you know, on the invite. And so Derek was a preemie, and he was born 8 weeks early. And he was in the NICU, and he was born 8 weeks early, 4 pounds, 8 ounces. So he's almost 5 pounds, 8 weeks early. But all the other babies in the NICU were like 1.5 pounds, or, you know, they were small, right? And so all the nurses called him Big D. And it just it just morphed over D. I mean, as he, you know, you can't call him Baby D forever. So it morphed into D-man, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, something like that. But so that's how he got to be D-man.
I love it. Well, we love our D-man. Any final questions? We'll get you all out of here onto your normal day, if there aren't any more. All right. Well, everybody, let's thank Nickole and Kathy and Derek so much for hanging out with us today.
Golf clap. Golf clap. We're working on that one.
It happens. All right, everybody. Well, you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.